I meditated every day for a year, and this is what I learned. A lot, but also nothing. Let's start with a lot. Meditating for a year straight has taught me to be kinder to myself, more understanding of other people, especially people that would have gotten on my nerves or who I have issues with. It's made me a better driver. This sounds pretty silly, but I noticed it right away. I used to drive way too fast, or I would get impatient in traffic and angry when someone cut me off. That doesn't really happen anymore. Now I drive way slower. Traffic doesn't make me upset. And if someone ever cuts me off or does something that I think is wrong, I just kind of like let it go. I'm more tolerant of physical discomfort, pain, sickness, injury. The difference is small, but I have noticed it. I'm way less worried about success, fame, money, all of that stuff. And lastly, I would say I'm a little bit better at communication now after sitting with my thoughts for so long. In terms of nothing, I still feel like me. I don't feel changed in any way. I'm not magically happy all the time. I don't think that I'm any closer to enlightenment. Things that made me upset before still make me upset now. I'm not always mindful or grateful, and my anxiety is still there. I think looking back at this year of meditation and this just year in general, the positive effects of meditating every day far outweigh the more neutral outcomes. But the reason that I started meditating every day was to help my anxiety. And it did, like kind of immediately. About a month in, I started to feel kind of normal again, or maybe even better than normal. I had control over my anxiety for the first time, it felt like. But then I started to really get attached to this path. I thought this was the thing that I had been looking for 25 years. This way out of mental discomfort that I had neglected for so long. And now all I needed to do was just stay consistent and put in a lot of effort, and then anxiety, depression, whatever, it would just go away forever. I was seriously considering becoming a monk, and still kind of am, but we'll talk about that later. So what was the meditation? What was I doing? At the beginning, my meditation schedule was 20 minutes a day, 2 times a day, usually around 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. I've also experimented with just one 20-minute session a day, a super long meditation right when I wake up, first thing in the morning, short meditation right before bed, and a bunch of tiny meditations scattered throughout the day. And there were some days that I missed altogether, probably in the range of 15 or 20. But on those days, I made sure to say to myself, okay, I know I can't meditate today, but I'm going to take time right now to really focus on this task. And I felt like that was enough for me to keep my streak going, because I was actively putting mindful attention into whatever I was doing. I also quit smoking and drinking. I deleted my TikTok and Instagram accounts, and I stopped watching TV to fall asleep. Boring, I know, but I really thought it was important to mention because I noticed an immediate effect on my mental health. Some of the techniques that I used were mantras. These could have been anything from like Tibetan words to some of the mantras that this guy Thich Nhat Hanh talks about called gathas. And those are something along the lines of breathing in, I know this is an in breath. Breathing out, I know this is an out breath. Things like that. Watching the breath. Object meditation. Looking at a candle flame or a spot on the wall as a way to ground your focus and your concentration. Tonglen, which is basically an active compassion exercise. But the technique that I felt like was the most helpful and the most directly effective was what I like to call projections, reflections, and proflections. I would sit and meditate, and I would watch my thoughts come in and label them as one of those 3 things. A projection was just anything based in the future. Something that I was excited or worried about happening, but I had never actually experienced before. I felt like these were always linked to anxiety or excitement. A reflection was remembering an experience that I had in the past. Either something super pleasant or super terrible, but either way it made me feel something in the present moment. And I noticed that these were linked to depression or yearning, kind of like lusting for pleasure and comfort. A proflection, I know it's not a real word, was a combination of the two. It was something that happened in the past that would lead me to create an imaginary scenario that I was afraid about happening in the future. I would say these were the hardest to detect and also led to the worst kind of feelings. Usually some despair. But yeah, this process was super helpful throughout the past year. Sometimes more than others, but I feel like whenever I had my hardest moments, this was always the thing that helped give me a lift or kind of like work through it. Instead of being that worry or that sadness, I could say to myself, oh, this is just a momentary moment. And I know it's not me and it's not gonna last forever. I think that last bit is the most important thing that I learned the past year. Nothing lasts forever. Not the good, not the bad, not the worst stuff or the best stuff. At least this far into this weird journey, it seems like no matter how hard you meditate, no matter how much work you put in, you're still going to have fear and longing because that's how our brain is supposed to work. We can't control that part of our brain. It's a problem solving machine. But we can control how we look at those feelings. I think that meditating regularly for the past year has shown me that slowly over time, we can shorten the duration of those unpleasant states. Because I think that what happens is when I feel unpleasantness, I freak out. I project into the future to solve an imaginary problem that might release this momentary discomfort, which causes anxiety, or I reflect into the past to see if we've gone through anything before that might give us comfort or help us get through this current pain. Depression. But if we can remember that it'll pass, maybe it'll pass a little quicker each time.